One of the best things about bodyweight training is that we have so many ways that we can vary our exercises, and so we can be extremely creative with how we progressively overload. The downside to this though is that it makes it difficult to quantify progress, and so we can easily find ourselves plateauing and stuck in a rut. The best way to circumnavigate this though is to measure our training efforts in order to evaluate them. So today we're going to dive into how to measure progress with bodyweight training, and more importantly, how to do this effectively. Let's get into it. How you doing, Cali Crowd? Welcome back to the channel that makes calisthenics simple. Jumping right into it, the first way that we can look to measure our calisthenics progress is to simply just write it down. Remembering what we did a week ago might be easy enough, but many calisthenics goals take months and even years to achieve, so understanding where we've come from and where we need to improve needs documenting. But this doesn't have to be a painful, meticulous documentation. There are many apps that make this really simple for us. I myself use one called FitNotes. This isn't a plug, by the way, but it's so simple and allows me to do everything I need. But you could equally use Google Sheets or classic pen and paper. And while jotting down what we do is our first line of defense, it does go a little bit deeper than that. Noting that we did banded front lever holds, for example, isn't enough information. What resistance did the band offer and how much was it assisting you? Where on our body did we place the band? And how long was the hold time? These are the details that hold us to account, and actually, if we find ourselves stagnating, these records should be our first port of call. We also need to record ourselves. Now, many may criticize me for this one, as many gyms are now just a proxy to a film set. Now, I'm not saying film every single exercise of every single workout, but if you're looking to learn a new calisthenic skill or movement, and you haven't seen what you look like while doing it, you may find yourself surprised. Proprioceptive awareness is a challenge even for the most experienced of athletes, especially when fatigued and the camera doesn't lie. This is especially important in calisthenics, where changing the lever is a form of progression. This is far harder to gauge than simply adding another 1.25 to the bar, and so we need to keep ourselves honest with how far we're sticking our legs out or how much of an incline we're leaning, so let that MP4 do the work for you. While the actual work that we put in, so reps and sets, will be what matters most in our training, the amount of time we rest will also have a big impact on our calisthenics goals. And so it would make sense to measure our rest times too. Now, when looking to build muscle, we could argue that this is slightly less important because, as I just mentioned, total volume and ensuring we approach task failure is the most important factor here. But when it comes to skill work or strength, rest time becomes significantly more crucial to track. Here, we're often working at our 1 rep max, and actually in the case of negatives, we're working beyond our upper limit. So we need to take a leaf out of the best strength builders that there are, namely powerlifters, and ensure that we're resting at least 3, maybe even sometimes 5 minutes between sets in order to get that energy back to make sure that we continue to lift heavy. These times sound astronomical, particularly when put in the context of a full workout. And they are, but this is what needs to happen if we're going to hit the heights that we want to achieve when it comes to strength. If you're finding that you can truly jump back into a set 90 seconds after you finish the last one, then maybe you can take that as an indication that you should be increasing the difficulty of that next set. But ultimately, the point I'm trying to make is, how will you even know to do this if you're not tracking that time in the first place? And coupled to this point on timing, we have the time taken to perform the actual reps themselves, aka tempo. Measuring this is probably most important with isometrics and negatives. A negative over 10 seconds will be overwhelmingly more challenging than one performed for a duration of 3 seconds. We can count in our heads, but our minds default to laziness, and you'll find that counting to 10 is not the same as 10 seconds. Here's where a metronome can be a godsend, because we can simply set the ticker to play over our music while we train, and hold ourselves to account that we have actually performed the set tempo that we said we would. The next piece is something that actually gets overlooked a lot when it comes to bodyweight training, and that is measuring our actual body weight itself. If we can do fewer pull-ups than we could a month ago, but we've also put on weight in that time, then the increase in weight could be the reason why. But if we don't know that that's the case, it can be really frustrating to get onto the bar and not understand why you're not hitting the rep numbers that you know you're capable of. Where traditional weight training is built on absolute strength, essentially, I want to lift as much as I can, as many times as I can, calisthenics is built on relative strength. How good are we at managing the balance between gaining muscle to do a thing, but not getting so heavy that all the things become too challenging? This becomes even more interesting to track once we get into the realms of weighted calisthenics too. If you have decreased your overall body weight by, say, 3 kilos, but during that time you've managed to increase your weighted pull-ups by 5 kilograms, for example, then in percentage terms, you could be looking at a huge increase in your pull-up game in bodyweight percentage terms. This doesn't have to be anything too fancy, and I am certainly not saying that we should weigh ourselves every day, but if calisthenics is the route that we want to go down, understanding how our body weight changes and affects our training over time does become more important. And I also want to leave a quick point on setting fewer goals as well, because having fewer goals makes measuring them far easier. If we take the previous points to heart, so we make sure that we're noting down our exercises and we're measuring things like tempo and rest times, but also on the other hand, we want to learn 5 different calisthenic skills as well as improving our flexibility and getting our reps up. Measuring all of this for all of these goals can be overwhelming for anybody. The beauty of calisthenics is that the few can get us to the many, and we don't actually need to do all of it at once. Setting 1 or 2 goals while attending to the basics can get us a surprisingly long way. Crowd, make sure that you're measuring your progress and keeping yourselves honest to it when it comes to your training. But if you want to take a look at what I'm doing in my training sessions and what they look like, then you can check out this video right here.